can see you. Hi, Isaac. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, your hair looks different. Are you
I,
in the
I
green
changed.
room or something?
No, I changed the background. I'm using virtual background
Oh, okay. Cool.
effect.
I see.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. You tired of being, it was cool you being outside and stuff. I found it pretty interesting for you to be
Yeah.
outside. You
Yeah.
know, you've been showing us different environments every time.
Yeah.
I, yeah.
So, I'm studying too many AWS services, how it works and all. You already explained uh, some of the services and how it works already. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of people are watching and learning from it. Your explanation is very
Okay.
clear. So I thought, uh, uh, why can't we talk about another service which is very important and which is very useful, which is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. We can. We can. Yeah. From last time. From what we talked about, we can add on. Like I said, as a AWS solutions architect, you're supposed to have a depth knowledge about the services and resources in AWS. And for you to be really an expert, you have to be able to design a well architectured framework in AWS. And with that, you have to follow the AWS well architectured framework pillar. And one of the pillars in a well architectured framework, or one of the five pillars, has to do with security. So today we're going to get a depth knowledge. We're going to dive deep into uh, the security pillar and explain exactly what to do and what are the best practices while working around security in AWS. And with that being said, I can go ahead and share my screen, and
Okay.
then we can get started. When you are ready, I can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah. AWS Identity, security in
Security.
AWS cloud.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to finish the presentation because I started pretty late working with this. So
Okay, okay.
yeah, I just started working on it when we had started the presentation. So I'm not gonna have enough time to put one that's very detailed, so I can share with the audience. But next time I'll make sure I design a PowerPoint that should be easy to follow around. And this is one of the pillars in AWS, the five pillars. And security is very important in the cloud. And uh, well, from the previous times, when we were using when we were using computers locally, we still needed the username and password, you know, to log into our computers. Even up to now, we still need a username and password to log into our computer. Even when you're working on premises, you still need to secure your documents. You still need to secure your data and all that information for the company, uh, so it doesn't get in the hands of the bad guys. So with that, we always try to authenticate just the selected users to access the information as they need to access it. And we always try to give them exactly what they need. And then we restrict what they do not need to have access to. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and log into, I'm going to go ahead and get into my browser. Make sure I'm connected. And one of the best practices with AWS, it always tells you to never use a root account to sign in. So AWS security. Well, as you can see, always I pull up these documents. As you can see, they are available online. They are public. You can access them, like, you can access them. They are white papers. You can access them and get a detailed, or you learn more about the security best practices. As it says, AWS security best practices, white papers, and this is the updated copy. Sure, the one I got is not, the one I had wasn't. Well, yeah, we can use it. Yeah. So this is a white paper as well, and as we can see, it's going to show us there are 6 best practices areas in the cloud for security, and there is identity and access management, there is detection, there is infrastructure protection, data protection, and incident response. What do they mean by security? To operate your workload securely, you must apply overarching best practices to every area of security. Take requirements and processes that you have defined in operational excellence at organizational and workload level and apply them to all areas. Stay up to date with AWS and industry recommendations, and threat intelligence helps you to evolve your threat model and control objectives, automating security processes, testing, validation, allowing you to scale your security operations. The following questions focus on considerations of security. How do you securely operate your workload? With this, they're asking you how you secure your workload. How, like, for example, your accounts you create, and for your employees and your customers. How secure are you? How do you know that you are operating within the compliance standards, and at the same time, your data is secure from cyber attacks and the bad guys on the internet? So identity and access management is one of the key parts for you to ensure that you provide authenticated users and components to be able to access your resources and services. So you should define principles, that is accounts, users, roles, and services that can perform actions in your account. Build out policies aligned with these principles. Implement strong credential management. These privilege management elements form the core of authentication and authorization. By identity and access management, in short, we call it IAM. Well, you have to make sure that when you create these accounts and you give your users authentication, you make sure you follow IAM best practices in AWS. So you have to make sure that you give access to the people you intend to give access to, even the accounts you create, and you're trying to, like for example, if you trying to integrate some accounts to access your account, like third party, you have to make sure you provide the right credentials and you give them to the right users, the right roles and services. For users, by users, that would mean like people like us. People like us, they can be developers that are trying to like you, for example, your company, I would say I'll give an example of a company that processes data, like reports, billing reports, and stuff like that. And you have developers that work on your code, and you need to give them access in order to access your AWS account. These developers are the users. Those are the users that are going to log in and perform changes according to your company requirements. And then roles, these are a group of developers, like groups, like you have groups that are assigned to do a certain role. This can be like a group of 20 different developers or administrators, and then you create like a developer account, and then different developers are gonna consume that role, and that role is gonna be consumed in order for them to do what they need to do. For example, if they need to create a EC2 instance, you're gonna create a role where you're gonna attach this role to the group, which is developers, and then with this role, this policy, they are gonna be able to access that role. So they are gonna have the power to create EC2 instances, and then also services. Like for example, let me say for example, they need to access like a S3 bucket and stuff. That's a service in AWS. Or they need to access monitoring, CloudWatch, services like CloudWatch. They need to access services like databases in AWS. They are going to have access like that. Those are the services. That's what they mean by services. In AWS, privilege management is primarily supported by AWS Identity and Access Management, which allows you to control user and programmatic access to AWS services and resources. You should apply granular policies, which assign permissions to a user. By what they mean, you should apply granular policies. Those are the policies which assign permissions to the users. So the users are given permission through these policies, the granular policies, to a user, group, role, or resource. You should also have the ability to require strong password practices such as complexity level, avoiding reuse, enforcing multi-factor authentication. You can use federation using existing directory services for workloads that require systems to have access to AWS. IAM enables secure access through roles, instance profiles, identity federation, and temporary credentials. So what they mean with you should also have what they mean with control user and programmatic access to AWS services and resources. By that, what they mean is a user is going to be given permission through a policy. You're going to create a policy where a user is given permission to access different resources based on what they need to do when they get into the account. And then also, one of the best practices is to avoid reusing the password, So you can set up like expiration dates, like, hey, this password should expire every 30 days. So a user is mandated to change their password before the 30 days expire or before the 90 days expire. The user is going to change their password. These are all things you can do with AWS. And then also you can enforce MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, where there is another layer of authentication before, like a user types in their username and password, and before getting access into the account, they are gonna use some of the MFA authenticators online. These key MFA authenticators to authenticate them, to provide a code to verify that they are who they are, and then access the account. And then also they tell you can use federation with your existing directory service. Also, they are federated users. Like, for example, let me say you're trying to give access to people or access to employees, and these employees are more than 100. You can't just go there one by one and you do it single. You do it one by one. You have to use federation, where with your existing Active Directory, and then you provide access through federation, where they can access it, where you don't have to create the account one by one, which is also overwhelming, and at the same time, it helps to secure your account. IAM enables secure access through roles, instance profiles, identity federation, and temporary credentials. You can use also temporary credentials like STS, like tokens. So going on, the following questions focus on these considerations for security. So these are some of the questions they will ask. You should ask yourself to make sure like you are secure. Like, are you really using? Are you following the security best practices in AWS in order to for your account in AWS? So these are some of the questions you ask. The second question you'd ask: how do you manage identities for people and machines? Those are some of the questions. How do you manage identities for people and machines? So people, how are you gonna identify? Manage how are you gonna identify how if people are the ones accessing your account or if it's machines? So for people, those are users, like we had said, those are users. So we give them permission, like I've discussed. We give them permission to where they require username and password, and then you enable multi-factor authentication for them to access. And then machines, they also need a way of logging in. But like we had said, for machines, they're not going to be able to use the username and password. So they have to be assigned. They have to be given roles. We use roles for them to access our account. through automation. Even when you go deeper and you're trying to use automation in AWS, or you're trying to automate different services. Some of them, like Lambda, if you set up Lambda triggers and stuff, and then you create roles to be accessed by these services and resources. And machines also point to the roles that get consumed so they can access these services. So these are two types of identities you need to manage when approaching operating secure AWS workloads. Understanding the type of identity you need to manage and grant access helps you ensure the right identities have access to the right resources under the right conditions. Human identities, your administrators, developers, operators, and end users require an identity to access your AWS environments and applications. These are members of your organizations, external users with whom you collaborate and whom interact with your AWS resources via web browsers, client applications, or interactive command line tools. Machines, your service applications, operational tools, workloads require an identity to make requests to AWS resources. For example, read data. These identities include machine running in your AWS environment, such as Amazon EC2 instances, Amazon Lambda functions, which may also manage machine identities for external parties who need access. Additionally, you might also have machines outside of AWS that need access to your AWS environment. Like I've said, we're going to perform. I'm gonna go a little bit far in details to show you a little bit, how to create these users and even the roles in AWS, where to go, where to find these resources and how you can use them. The third one, how do you manage permissions for people and machines, which you already did. This is the third one. Let's see what they have to say about this. Manage permissions to control access to people and machine identities that require access to AWS and your workload. Permissions control who can access what and under what conditions. Like I said earlier, permissions are given to users and they are also given to machines or they are given to machines or services as we have described. And if you have you can this white paper has a lot you can learn about. They show you to define access requirements, grant list privileges. This is a principle in AWS where it tells you one of the best practices is to grant list privileges, grant only access that identities require by allowing access to specific actions on specific AWS resources under specific conditions. Rely on groups and identity attributes to dynamically set permissions at scale rather than defining permissions for individual users. For example, you can allow a group of developers access to manage only resources for their project. This way, when a developer is removed from a group, access for the developer is revoked everywhere that group was used for access control without requiring any changes to the access policies. Like I had said, to grant list privileges, what they mean basically, for example, there are developers that you give access to your AWS resources. And let me put it this way. This is a group of developers, they can be 20, and they need access to your server in the cloud, like a server that would be like a EC2 instance. And you need to provide them access to do something, So are you going to give them like access, like as like administrator access, or are you going to give them read-only access? How are you gonna? Because since they are developers, of course they are gonna need read and write access. So you're gonna give them read and write access, but then at the same time, you're gonna specify what are they going to do in there when they get in there for exactly the need and the want they need to do. And so you give them access on exactly what they need to do. You know, if they need to go to perform on a specific service, you give them access to go perform that specific service. You don't give them full access to do changes where they don't need to be. Establish emergency access processes, a process that allows emergency access to your workload in the unlikely event of an automated process or a pipeline issues. This will help you rely on least privileged access, but ensure users can obtain the right level of access when they require it. For example, establish a process for administrators to verify and approve their requests. So if you give them access, at the same time, you know, the administrators needs to be notified when these people are in there, so they can maybe they're gonna get an email notification like, hey, so such and such has access to your account. Do you wanna verify this? And they go ahead and they verify that, and then they have access. Reduce permissions continuously. As teams and workloads determine what access they need, remove permissions they no longer use, and establish review processes to achieve least privileged permissions. Continuously monitor and reduce unused identities and permissions. So let me say, for example, you're a new team, you know, you gave access to developers, but you didn't know what access you needed to give them. So at the initial point, you had given them access to access resources they didn't need to access. So as you monitor over time, you find out like, hey, these developers don't need to use this resource, but they have access to it. So when you use like resources like services like CloudWatch to monitor this, CloudTrail to look through who accessed this and stuff, it will show you like, hey, these developers were also able to access this service. But yet the developers don't need to access it and they are not in use of it. Then little by little you take away those permissions and you take away those permissions they don't need to access. And then you continuously monitor as they use these resources and you take away more privileges to where you reduce to just that they need to access. Next, define permission guardrails for your organization. Establish common controls that restrict access to all identities in your organization. For example, you can restrict access to specific AWS regions, prevent your operators from deleting common resources, such as IAM role used for central security team. So with this one here, guardrails for your organization. So like you see in AWS, we have different regions. You know, it can be the North Virginia region, it can be the Europe region, it can be the Asian region, Asia, it can be somewhere like the region in Asia. So let me say, for example, I'm an employee who works in the US, and I need to access the servers in the US, and those are specifically the servers I work on. Why would I need to have to be able to see the Asian region or the European region or Singapore region? I don't need to see that. So I can create a policy in AWS that's gonna be able to show the US employees just the US region, where they can't see the Asian region, where they can't see the European region. Then next, manage access based on life cycle. Integrate access control with operator and application life cycle, and use centralization federation provider. For example, remove a user's access when they leave the organization or change roles. Like we had said, a developer comes, works in your company, or these might be even temporary developers is here for 3 months. They have access. You give them access to access your account. And then time comes, they leave. You should create like life cycle policies to where these users are automated. These life cycle policies are automated to delete these users in the organizations when they expire, when these users expire, their time when they are working at your company has expired. Moving on, analyze public and cross-account access. Continuously monitor findings that highlight public and cross-account access. Reduce public access and cross-account access to only resources that require this type of access. Like I said, only way to do this, you can monitor this, but there are things, you accessing the web through these ports like web browsers and stuff. That's how you access the internet. There are resources like your servers that are exposed to the outside world can be able to be monitored, and you should know which accounts and who accessed which resources from the outside, from where, from what region, or from what availability zone. And then you monitor this and find out what you find out and who's accessing it. And then, you limit access based on that. Share resources securely. Govern the consumption of shared resources across accounts or within your organization. Monitor shared resources and review shared resource access. Which, with this, what they mean is there is governance, there are resources for you to, in AWS governance, for you to monitor and share resources in your organizations accordingly. So, yeah, so with that being said, we're gonna proceed. I'm gonna go through these real quick, and then we're gonna go ahead and look at these resources to see where they are in the console. Detection. You can use detection. You can use detection controls to identify a potential security threat. With this, we have things like AWS CloudTrail here, and you can use CloudTrail logs to monitor who, and you can also set alarms and events using CloudWatch to see who accessed what and what APIs were called in AWS and accessed these. And then you can also use AWS config, which provides a history of who went in there and changed your configuration. Like AWS config provides configuration history. Like if somebody goes in there and they change your configuration, on your servers and stuff, you can use AWS config to monitor who did this. With also threat detection, there are things like Amazon Guard Duty. Amazon Guard Duty, is a managed threat detection service that continuously monitors for malicious and unauthorized behavior to help you protect your AWS accounts and workloads. You can also, service level logs are also available in AWS. You can set up logs, and that can be stored in AWS S3 from AWS CloudTrail in order to monitor who and the history of your access patterns. This also brings you to another question, how do you detect and investigate security events? And then with what I said, how do you do that? AWS CloudTrail, AWS Config, AWS, all those, you can investigate and detect who Amazon Guard Duty can detect, and then also AWS WAF, Web Application Firewall, is also something that can prevent, someone from accessing what? Infrastructure protection. Infrastructure protection encompasses control methodologies such as defense in depth necessary to meet best practices and organization or regular obligations. Use of these methodologies is critical for success ongoing operations in either the cloud or on premises. Like we said, infrastructure protection requires you to be able to use the best practices, in AWS for security in order for you to ensure that you prevent all these bad actions from happening to your resources in AWS. This can be in the cloud or on premises. The rules still follow. You still have to follow this. And then, in AWS, you can implement stateful and stateless packet inspection either by using AWS native technologies or by using partner products, services available through Marketplace. You should use Amazon Virtual Private Cloud VPC to create private, secure, and scalable environment in which you can define your topology. With these, you can use all of these, like, with infrastructure protection, you can use the VPC are things that are there to protect you and to protect your account. And with the VPC, we can go deep into the details. You have stateful and stateless packets inspections. You can create, like with the EC2 on the instance level. You have security groups that act as firewall on the instance level, and then you also have NACOs at the VPC level, at the VPC level, at the subnet level. At the subnet level, you have NACOs, network access control lists that can help you prevent access to your accounts. And as we go on, how do you protect your network resources? Your network, like we discussed, you have the VPC, you have security groups, and you have subnets. And then you have, how do you protect your computer resources? With the computer resources, like we discussed, the monitoring and logging and alerting services to protect your resources, CloudWatch and all of that, data protection. How do you protect your data? With protecting your data, you can use managed keys, to encrypt your data like KMS, like key management services, to encrypt your data, and then detailed logging that contains important content such as file access. How do you classify your data? How do you protect your data at rest? How do you protect your data in transit? All these, are things you can find in the white papers, and that can explain and show you how you protect your data, in AWS. All of these, when you follow these, they fall under the security pillar in AWS. And when you follow these best practices, you, as a solutions architect, you should be able to have a successful career in AWS, and you should be able to land a good paying job. Yeah. So moving on, I'm gonna go ahead and sign in so I can show you this. So I'm gonna log in. Like I said, since I'm logging in as root, they always, ask you to confirm to verify. So I have to put in this and then log in. Like I said, MFA, I have multi-factor also authenticated here. It's another extra layer of security. So I have to go in there, enter my code that's issued to me before I log in. 064. Now I'm in. That's an extra layer of security for my account. So now I'm signed into my console. And so when you log into the AWS console, let me get it deep. When you log into the AWS console, on the very top here, as you can see here, this can tell me, it gives me my account, and there is a difference. See, when I'm logged in as root, it's just going to show my name here. And then the result, I'm going to log out and show you when I log in as just the I am user. There is also a difference when I log in. So it's going to ask me for my account. You see, if I log in as a I am user, it's going to ask me for my account. So I have to go and first get my account number first. I have to type in my account, paste in my account number. Once I'm in, then it's going to ask me for the username. I put in the username, and then I log in. Also there, I have MFA. So I have to type in my code. It's generated when you enable MFA 376. Now I'm in. So that's an account. What happened? All right. Asking me for the account 205317. Okay. Now I'm in. As you can see, when I'm logged in as not root, as you can see, Edgar at the account number. So that means I'm not a root user. I'm an I am user. So since we logged in, I'm gonna go ahead and type I am here. When I click on I am, it's gonna take me. So it's going to show me this is, and once you log in, like I was explaining to you, also when you log in, you type in I am in the console, it's gonna bring you here on the dashboard. You have user groups, you have users, you have roles, policies, identity providers, account settings. So as you can see here, I'm in the IAM resources. You have users, groups, customer managed policies, roles, identity providers, and best practices. These are the best practices. It tells me grant list privileges, like we discussed. Use AWS organizations. Enable identity federation. These are like single sign-ons. Enable MFA, multi-factor authentication. Rotate credentials. Like if I need to rotate my passwords, I can go here and rotate my password after a certain period. Enable IAM access analyzer. All of this. So we're gonna go ahead and click on the users. So it's going to, like you see here. These are the users I have. I have a group called developers. And in this group called developers, I have one user, Edgar. And they have permissions. What permissions do they have? There is a policy in here. In the permissions here, there is a policy in here. This policy here, like you see, policy ARN, I am administrator access. Description provides full access to AWS services and resources. So a user who has access to the administrator access policy, they have full access to AWS services and resources. That means they can go in there and they can create and delete accounts based on that. Those are the permissions. The policy usage, as you can see here, it's giving us, it's used by the developer, AWS, quick setup, stack set, local execute role. That's the role, which a developer, this is a role that can be consumed by the resources or services, like machines and stuff like that. That's the role that can be consumed. Group is for developers, and then the role is to machines, non-human. We're gonna go here. As you can see, this policy here, it also has a JSON, and it's always these policies are in the JSON format. So in the JSON format, as you can see, open and close. Okay, all right. As you can, like we were said, the policy, we have the policy here. It's in the JSON format. It has the version, statement, and then in the statement, inside here, it has an effect, which shows you, it gives you an effect, which shows you allow. Action. What? Allow what? Allow, the asterisk means all. Allow all. And the resource, it shows you the resource. Also the resource says all, allow all. The asterisks means allow also. Action, effect, allow, action, allow all resources to access this, all services and resources to access. So they are giving access to services and resources to access. That's what the policy says. So going back, I'm going to show you how to create a user. So I'm going to create a user here. For example, I'm going to create a user called Sai. I'm going to create a user called Sai. They're asking me what and what. Enable, here we go down here, select AWS access type. Select how these users will access AWS. Access keys, auto-generated passwords are provided in the last password. So access type, programmatic access, I say yes. Allow AWS Management Console access, I say yes. So enables a password that allows users to sign in to the console. I click on that, and then he asked me to console password, auto-generate password. Like, do I want the password to be auto-generated? I'm like, oh, well, it can be auto-generated. Now, with auto-generation, I can even, or I can make it custom. Custom is where I go ahead and type in the password myself. Let me say auto-generated. And then require password reset. User must create a new password at the next sign in. User automatically gets the I am user change password policy to allow them to change the password on their own. So I say, okay, yes, and I say next. I say next. And also, before I proceed, I can even choose to add more users. I can even also, okay, instead of just Sai, I can also say, okay, let me also add. First one was Sai. I can say, let me also add Martin. That's the first name that came on top. I'm like, okay, Martin too. I can add as many users as I want, and then I say next. And then it tells me here, add users to a group, copy permissions from existing user, attach existing policy directly. I'm like, okay, I don't have a group. Okay, I have a group already. I have a group called developers, but I want to go ahead and, like I say, since I have a group here, I can say, okay, these users, add them to this for them to have administrator access. I'm like, no. So copy permissions from existing, attach existing policies, no. So I'm like, okay, let's just say next. They ask me to tags. I can write tags and, to define who and who is. I'm like, okay, name, tags, temporary users, review and next. User details, Sai and Martin, programmatic access and AWS management console. Password auto-generated, require password reset, permissions boundary is not set. I'm like, create users. So you see, 2 users have been created. As you can see, 2 users have been created, Sai and Martin. So this is the access, this is the secret key, and then this is the password I need to show. So this is the password. So I can choose to download this CSV file. So I'm gonna go ahead and download this file. You always get a chance to download that file. So I download that file. So once I download that file, like you see here, when I sign in, like you see, I'm gonna need this link here in order for them to access the console. So I'll need that link. So I'm gonna go to downloads. Okay, you can click on this link. As you can see, we keep it there. We keep it there. So we're gonna go ahead, go in downloads. That's where our CSV file is. So go to downloads. This is the new CSV file. We're gonna try to open it. I'm like, open with what? I'm like, open with Excel. We open. Okay. These are our users. That's their password. That's Sai. That's the password. That's the link for them to access. That's the link, like they showed you, for them to access the console. So I'm gonna go with this one here. Sai. I'm gonna go back to my console. I'm gonna type in Sai is the user. I'm gonna get that password. I need to copy the password. I copy it. I come here. I paste my password. It's like save password. I'm like, not now. See, now it's telling me to enter my old password. I enter my old password. Now it's asking me to put in a new password. So I'm gonna put in my new password. I'm gonna be like, okay, let me type in my new password. There you go. Not now. Okay, said passwords do not match. Let me go ahead. What am I doing? All right. All right. Not now. Okay. So now we are back in. This user here has access. I've given him access. So now I'm signed in. As you can see, Sai is signed in, and I gave him a new password. So we're gonna go back to I am. So as you can see, this user will encountered the following errors while processing your request. This user here is not authorized to perform get account summary or resource. This user get account on resource. So this user here has restrictions. So let's go and see which resources this user is allowed. As you can see, this user here is not even allowed to perform any of these. Let's try to launch an instance. Okay, the user is allowed to launch. They can launch an instance. No, they can't. They only have read-only access. That's why. So as you can see, this user here is not allowed to perform a lot of things on the resource. So let's go here in I am. We're gonna go to users. He's not even allowed, doesn't have the permissions to view. So user I am Sai is not authorized to perform. I am list users on resource is not allowed. Ask your administrators to add permission. As you can see, this user here has restrictions. So we're gonna log out. I'm gonna go back in. As editor. We need the account number. We need this account name. Copy. Again, I need to type my MFA. Put it in here, 071. That expired. 098518. Okay. Okay. I mean, now if I click on this user is allowed to perform this. So this one here has no. So we're gonna go back to I am, and then we're gonna look how many users do we have. We have users. We have this user Sai. Why is Sai not allowed to We're going to look at the policy that's stopping this guy from accessing. He has this policy. Okay, so when you created this user is not even, I am user, change password. This user doesn't have any attachment. It's not attached. We just created the account and access for him to get into the resource, but this user is not added to any groups. So here we have a group called developer. Right? So I can say add user to groups, and I can come in here and add him to this group developer, or I can create a group called developer. I can create a group. I can come here, user groups. I can create a group here. I can create a group, and I can call it auditor, and excuse me, auditor, and I can say like, hey, this user here, Sai, I'm going to add him. I'm going to pick a policy to where they can have I can pick there are different policies here. I can say, access EC2 instance. Access. I can put in EC2. Instance. Search. All these are policies we can pick from. AWS Amplify. We can scroll through to find different policies. So, like here, there are all these policies I can pick. I can say security audit. Since it's an auditor, we can click on this security edit, and then we create auditor user group created. Create this group. So since we created a group called editor, Sai is in here. So Sai, what permissions does Sai have? Sai has permissions to audit. So this is the policy that's attached to this. So with this policy, this user is allowed, effect is allowed, resource or resources action is allowed to access dash analyze, get analyze resource, get finding, get archive rule, list tags for resources, list findings, list permissions, describe, job definitions, all these different kinds of things that are allowed for this person to do. Now, with that being said, I've showed you how to create a user, and I've showed you how to create even more than one user, and I've showed you how to create a group, and then also attaching a user to the group, like I showed. Sai, after I attached Sai to a group, which group? Auditor. Now I'm going to show you roles. These roles are consumed by resources. So for example, I can create like a role here. I can create a role, and this role can be assumed by a resource. Like, for example, I can create like a EC2 role, and this role is gonna be to create a EC2 instance, and then I can assign this role to an account, or I can assign it to a service. Like I can assign it to a service, like for example, like Lambda can write a code that can execute this role, and then they can consume this role to create a EC2 instance. Then also you can assign it to another AWS account, Web Identity, Samuel 2.0 Federation. You can use the templates and assign it and attach them to this. As you can see, you choose a role, you say next. And then here there is administrator access. There are different policies you can consume for this role, all of these you can pick from. And then, after that you hit create policy and so on. But you're not gonna go there. I've shown you how to do that. Policies, these are the policies, and they are different kind of, like administrator. I showed you how it is. You can go edit. You can also create your own policies. You can create a policy from scratch if you want. You can create a policy you can choose a service and you can create a policy from scratch here. Or you can use a visual editor where you don't have to use, if you don't know how to use JSON, you can use a visual editor to create this. And then, choose how you want Elastic Beanstalk, EC2 messages and stuff, and then you can create a policy, and then that policy can work on how you want it. The next thing I wanted to show you one more thing: account settings. Change password policy. Yes, I wanted to show you. Here you have different things. You can have, these are policies. The AWS account uses the following default password policies. Minimum password length is 8 characters. Include a minimum of 3 of the following characters. Uppercase, lowercase numbers must not be identical to your AWS account name or email. Change password policy here. Prevent password reuse. Allow users to change their own password. Password expiration requires administrator reset. Enable password expirations. All of these, you can configure them based on what you want. There's also STS service, which is session token from the STS endpoints. Yeah, when you look at endpoints, where you can use endpoints to access your resources. Then one more thing, MFA. Also here with the account settings, I was gonna show you, like when you create users, like a user like this Sai, a user like Sai, you also have you also have a chance here to generate a policy here. Generate policy based on CloudTrail. Permissions, you can send down boundaries here. Permission boundaries can restrict the permissions currently allowed for these users. So if you give this user permissions, you can set boundaries here where you can restrict them based on what, like we had discussed, you always, follow the principle of least privilege. And then one more thing I need to show you. Security credentials. When you click here on security credentials, console password enabled, assign MFA, I can go here and enable this user to create, like, if I want, there is virtual multi-factor devices you can use U2F. You can use other hardware MFA, AWS multi-factor authentication. You can use this, and there are a lot of parties you can use. You have Google Authenticator, you can download it on your phone, and then you can scan the code and then, enable access to that. Access Advisor is also here. You can use Access Advisor reports activities for services and EC2 IAM. Also, this is how you can audit your account. Okay. Going back, there is one thing I think I haven't. Okay, this is done. I've touched that. Okay. Right. Okay, yeah. So also here, like you can see SSH keys for AWS code commit, use SSH public keys to authenticate access to AWS code commit. You also have SSH, you have HHS JITs, credentials for AWS code commit, These are all access controls for if you go in the CI/CD pipeline, like when you use code commit for the CI, if you're requiring SSH authentication, you can do it through here. For them to access your CLI and stuff like that, you can enable that. And like we had discussed, like I said earlier, you can use the console, you can also use the command line interface to do all of this. You can sign the certificates, also signing certificates here. If I have a certificate, I can use it here. Also, you can use certificates to learn more about signing certificates. Currently, IAM doesn't have an API action to create signing in certificates, so you must use a third-party tool such as OpenSSL to create the certificate first. We recommend you to create RSA key that is either 1024-bit or 2048-bit. All of these, you can use certificates to be able, to access these resources and stuff. With that being said, yeah, that's IAM, and IAM, which is security best practices. We use it AWS, and within security, IAM is one of the security pillars in AWS. IAM is one of the security pillars in AWS, and then there are others like we had said, guard duty. There is AWS WAF. There is also network. If you're trying to provide security on the network level, resource level, instance level, all of that, you can see it. If you go in the white papers, security pillar, AWS, security pillar, AWS white papers, you should be able to find all of that information. With that being said, that ends our topic today about security in AWS. I'm going to give the mic back to Sai, and I appreciate everyone for listening.
Awesome. So, what are the major things that we have to put in our mind when we are using this when it comes to security?
Yeah, so the major things you need to put in your mind, first of all, you have to follow the best practices of security. Like, especially when you're working in the cloud, you have to make sure you're following these best practices. Like, things like, because when you're in the cloud, that means like, if cyber attacks can a potential threat to you, so you have to follow these best practices like MFA authentication, like we had said, passwords, how you manage your passwords, how you sign certificates, what certificates to get and where to get them, in order to protect your resources in the cloud, and you always have to make sure you follow the principle of least privileges. And also, you should always restrict yourself from using your root account, and you should always create a second account that you can access, like me here, where when I'm accessing it, I have a second account I'm using other than my root account when I'm working with these resources, and this account here has administrator access.
So, we are trying to protect our account and trying to give access only to particular users that we are creating.
Yes,
We are giving responsibilities like you have to do only this thing. You should not do these things. Like we are telling them what exactly that they can access.
exactly. And you give them like, if you are to give them permissions, you give them the list. Yeah, the principle of list. The list of just the resources they need to access, the bare minimum of what they need to access. And then, you should know when to take away those
Okay.
permissions from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many users that we can create, and how many users, how many people can be uh, created in this, and to how many people we can give authorization?
So it depends. So now it depends on how big your company is.
Okay.
So if you have like you have a small company that has just 20 users or 10 users, those you can create it. But if your company is very huge and it has up to 100 users, you can still create this. You can still create these users to up to 5,000, I think, up to 5,000. AWS gives you up to 5,000. You can create up to 5,000 users, and it's free. These are one of the services that are free in AWS. You don't have AWS allows you to create up to 5,000 users free in AWS, and it's free for lifetime. IAM is one of the services that are free, and it's a lifetime access, which is free in AWS.
So IAM is the only service which comes under security.
Right. Under security, there is IAM. Yeah. Well, it's not just IAM. IAM is one of the services that comes under security, but with security, you have best practices like management and governance. Like if you come here and you see like management and governance, there are things that help you like to secure your account and stuff. These are all security-based practices like Trusted Advisor, AWS CloudTrail, CloudWatch. Use them alongside IAM to monitor. These are governance and monitoring services. But when you go deep down, like in security and identity compliance, there is IAM, right?
Yeah.
There is IAM. There is Resource Access Manager, Cognito, Secrets Manager, Guard Duty, Inspector, AWS Inspector, Amazon Mercy, AWS Single Sign-On, Certificate Manager, Key Management Services, Cloud HSM, Directory Service, WAF and Shield, AWS Firewall Manager, Antifact, Security Hub, Detective, AWS Auditor Manager, AWS Signer, AWS Network Firewall. All of these are security services you have in AWS.
So like you said, IAM is a free service that anybody can use it. So what about the other security services? Are they free or we have to pay for them? Is that premium?
Yeah. So some of these services, they come like some of them they are free at a certain level. They are free at a certain extent. But when you exceed certain use, you are charged for consuming them. Some of these services like AWS Shield, there is Shield that you can use, but when you use AWS Shield Advanced, you are charged, So AWS WAF, it's the same thing too. You are charged at a certain level. So some of them are free, but then some of them are free at a certain extent. Basically, there's nothing really almost free in AWS, 100% free. You're gonna be charged for a certain charge, but for IAM, yeah, it's free.
So, so if a client comes as a solution architect, I have to tell to the client the importance of definitely the first question that a client asks is security. How secured AWS is? How can I secure my account, and how can I secure my data and the resources that I have? I'm moving my infrastructure from physical to virtual, like to cloud. So as a solution architect, how should I explain them about IAM?
Yeah. So with migration, like for example, like what you just say, like moving your data to the cloud and stuff. With the migration, there are also best practices of what you can do. Like there is data at rest and data in transit. So there are like there are ways we can encrypt the data at rest. When it's on premises, customers on premises, and then there is also while data is in transit, there is a way we encrypt it, and then we encrypt it back up when we decrypt it when the customer is trying to access their data for them to view it, and then we encrypt it again when it sits in the AWS cloud. Once it's there, So with your question, for as a solutions architect, your job is to provide the customer with all these services. Like you have to make a comparison, basically, like with things like when you are on premises. Okay, what did you have? Like you could use like the VPN and stuff like that to secure your data, and then this is how your customers were accessing, and your employees were accessing your data on premises. But when you move to the cloud, these are the services that are going to protect your data. And as you can see here in the cloud, on premises, usually you have like a username and password, and then you log in, right? Most of the time. But with AWS, like as you can see in the cloud, you have all this advantage of all these things, like username and password, and then in addition to that, you have MFA, and then you have federated, and as I said, and then you have automation also. You have like single sign-ons and stuff, even like for your automated like machines and stuff, how they access these roles that are signed like policies that give them access,
Okay.
to the services and stuff to access them and stuff, and then how secure it is, because they don't have to use passwords to access that. These are things that are automated, but then they use policies. They will create policies for them to access your resources and stuff. So the cloud, these resources here, when you use them in conjunction with each other, hand in hand, they provide, extra layers of security. And then also you have these monitoring tools to monitor the users like CloudTrail, AWS Config to monitor configuration changes and stuff. Those are extra features we didn't have like in the on-premises. But with you moving to the cloud, you have even a way to monitor your accounts and resources, on who and which and when, they were accessed. Yeah.
So
And then you,
yeah, go
yeah,
on.
and then also you have like, things like AWS Shield Advanced, AWS WAF, and Guard Duty that protect you from all these intrusion attacks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So as a solution architect, what is your experience with IAM? Your personal experience. It can be
Yeah.
clients or it can be any experience that you faced and that you learned.
Yeah, with my experience, and I'm still learning. With I've tried to make sure, like when it comes to users, I know when to create users and when to create single users, when to create group users, and how to assign users to different groups. And also I've also learned how to create these policies, and on how and when to allow specific people policies that are going to allow services, resources to access, different resources in AWS.
So what are these policies? Policy means telling the users what to do and what not to do.
A policy basically, these are like templates. I would say like these are templates that are written, right? But they are written like in JSON format. They can be in a JSON format, and like I showed you, like if you come here in IAM, these policies are created and they deny and allow access to different resources and services. Like this one here, like I'm gonna pick one that's like this one here. Someone like this one. Oh, EC2. Okay. Like here, like you see here, it's like this policy here. This is what I mean by a policy. Like this policy here, this is the summary of the policy. CloudWatch limited access read. EC2 list and read. So this policy here, it allows CloudWatch limited to list and read. EC2 limited list and read. EC2 auto scaling list and read. ELB v2 read access. So when you click on the summary of the policy in JSON, this policy, the effect it allows action EC2 to describe all resources. Describe the asterisk means all resources. And then it tells you it allows one of first resource action elastic load balancing all resources. It allows for the elastic load balancer to access all resources. This one here allows action, CloudWatch, to list metrics, to generate metrics statistics, CloudWatch describe all resources. So if you assign a policy, like with this policy here, if you assign it and you give somebody has permissions with this kind of policy, is allowed to create load balancers for all resources. This would be like all regions basically. And then here, CloudWatch, list metrics, get metrics, statistics, describe metrics. This means like this with the user with this kind of policy is gonna be allowed to access metrics in CloudWatch, get metrics, statistics in CloudWatch, describe metrics, to describe all metrics here in CloudWatch. And the resource is all resources, all. Allow effect, auto scaling, describe all resources. That's what I mean by a policy. It gives specific permissions. Some of them are read only, some of them are read and write, where the user is allowed to write, to delete and create and delete services based on like full access, EC2 full access. This policy here allows the user to do everything. It's not denied,
So all these policies are predefined by AWS?
Yeah, so these were written, they are in AWS, they are all available. They are already created. These are policies you can find in AWS. But also, you can also create your own policies according to your needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, which means this a policy means which tells where we can, as a solution architect, we can write and tell a user that you have to use this service up to this extent, and you have to use this service up to this extent. And I will be creating, and you will we are going to create a policy, and
Yeah.
And copying and pasting that code will tell that group or that user that you have to follow this policy.
Yes. Well, they have that policy. It's the policy has permissions.
Okay.
Within the policy, these are the permissions. Within the policy, these are the permissions that this user is going to consume. Is going to consume that policy to be able to access the resources and services in AWS based on the policy. And whatever that is not in the policy and stuff, they will be denied. If the policy says deny him this access, the policy will deny him permissions to access that kind of policy.
Is it important for me to know JSON to create a policy?
It is. But then also you can use Visual Editor. Like I said here, when you create this policy, you have JSON, right? But then you also have Visual Editor here. Visual Editor here is when you choose a service, like you see here. Service, action, resource, request conditions. I can come here and choose a service. So I can say, okay, the service is going to be an account. So I pick an account. Then I'm going to say like all account actions. So if I mark it with the star, that means I selected all. The star means all. Or if I just want list, I say, okay, yes, list. Then I'm going to go here, specify request conditions. I have to specify the condition. MFA requires console users, all those with temporary credentials, authenticate with authenticator, source IP. Add condition. I add a condition here. Select condition. I pick the condition, principal tag, source account, what. Put in everything like default. I can choose a value. But yeah, I can specify all of that. Additional permissions, I can do that. I can add additional permissions. If I need to add different services, like
Yeah, according to the requirement.
Yeah, and then I say next, add tags, I review, I give a name of my policy, I put a description of the policy, and guess what? As like I say, it's an account, right? This resource is for an account, full access to list. Remember, I said list, that's what I did. And then I create the policy. When I create my policy, it's going to come out in a JSON format as well. So I use this one here. I use Visual Editor to create it. I didn't use JSON. So I don't really have to know JSON to create a policy, but I can also create it. JSON helps me create it faster. If I know, JSON, I'm going to go in here, start creating a policy and stuff like so. As you can see here, I list the resource and, I give, according to how I'm supposed to do it. If I know JSON, it will be great. It's a plus, and it's always good on working with policies. Yes.
Okay. So you're saying that once we can create our own policies, and there are already some policies
Yes.
that AWS is predefined. So can we share our policy to other AWS account user?
Like you see, yeah. Well, these are the things, policies and stuff are consumed. So these are for accounts, right? So
Yeah.
these policies belong in this account, right?
Yeah.
They belong in this account.
Yeah.
But I can copy a policy, and if I have a different account, and I can use it, or I can create third-party policies and attach them to the account accordingly.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
same policy. But what I think you are trying to say, can a different account access services if I give them the policy? Yes, if I want like a different account to access my services, I can give access to that account, and I can create a policy and attach it to that account. So when that account connects to my services, they can access, the services that I've given them permissions to. Yes.
So we have two different types of accounts. One is root user and one is
There is root user, and then you have these child accounts. Like you see, the child accounts, different users, There is the administrator, right?
yeah,
Which is, basically root.
the main person.
Yeah. You can create power users, They are not, it's not a root account, but they are power users. These power users also have, let me go here real quick. A power user as like you see here. Yeah. With IAM, you can set permissions based on AWS provided policy templates like administrator access, which allow full access to all resources and services. Power user access, which provides full access to all resources and services, but does not allow managing users and groups or even read only. Like a power user, like a person like that, is not allowed to manage users and groups, but they have access to resources and services.
And they can make changes in it.
Exactly, to resources and services. But they are not allowed to manage users and groups. That means they don't have access. They are not allowed to make any changes in the IAM account.
And how many power users we can create?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure, but I know, as far as I know, you can create as many as you can. But
Okay.
yeah.
So awesome. So it's very clear and it's very understandable. I'm sure people who are listening and who is watching this from
Yeah.
anywhere will understand. I tried to ask the questions as a beginner. What are the
Okay.
questions that came in my mind? I asked you.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, guys. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time. It's always great, being on here and stuff. It's a good experience.
So it's a very good thing. You're telling another service. I'm sure whenever you're free, tell me. My people who are following us and the people who will be liking your explanation.
Yeah.
If you like you said in the last time, I think I asked you, are you starting any
Yeah.
blog or website? Or
Right. Yeah, I'm working on it, and very soon, within like a month, I
yeah.
should be giving you a link to what I'm working on it right now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because all the things like you are telling, it is reaching my audience. At the same
yeah,
time, if you put it on on a website, they can go through it, and I'm sure you will be explaining it as clear as possible. More people will get benefit. At the same time, it will be beneficial for them to correct they do mistakes. So
okay,
your contribution may help, and I'm sure whenever you complete doing that, let me know. I will tell to my
right,
audience about it.
okay, yeah, and it also helps, like to get a feedback, and maybe there might be something I might not have explained well, or I might have explained wrong. Nobody is perfect. Somebody
Yeah,
can be able to correct me there. Yeah,
but you
cool.
are the perfect person. Man. I did videos with a lot of people, but
Yeah,
your explanation is like expert level. You talk like an expert who is into AWS, and you explain things very perfectly. You do a lot of research, and it shows that
yeah,
you do a lot of research and you tell it. And it's very important for any person to do the research and telling, and it shows. I don't need it. As a beginner, I'm understanding it very very easily.
yeah,
So
right.
it's a great thing for me, for my audience. If I'm getting benefit, and if I'm learning, if I'm going anywhere in AWS learning, that is because of
Yeah,
you, and I will remember you always.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whenever you're free, you tell me another service.
Yeah,
I'll be
we'll talk another pillar when I'm free, or we can even go a little bit in depth for different services. There are things like the CI/CD, those are also interesting, like continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines. We can also tackle all of that. We still have a lot. Yeah, so when I get time, I should be able to let you know, and we can tackle those areas as well.
awesome. So one last question is, are you into Microsoft Cloud?
Microsoft Cloud. Yeah, so now um, I haven't really gotten into the details of Microsoft Azure, but I've launched a few instances with Microsoft Azure, but I'm thinking about doing a certification
Wow.
in Microsoft Azure 400, but the only thing is it's the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm working on my I'm working. I should actually I finished the course. I just need to take the exam. I need to take the exam. I've been working on the DevOps fundamentals
Awesome.
for for different platforms. That's Microsoft Azure, AWS, and GCP. So I finished with a certain institute, DevOps Institute. So I need to take the certification, and then I should be able. I think I'm thinking about tackling Microsoft Azure 400.
That's a great thing, man. Having a multi cloud
Yeah,
knowledge, I'm sure it will uh,
yeah,
enhance your thinking. So my last question was like you said about security, IAM. Is
yeah,
there anything service like that in I'm sure it will be there on Microsoft Azure also. Can you tell
yeah.
about that in a few minutes, like last, comparing this
Yeah.
with that?
Well, I haven't really gone into the details with Microsoft Azure, but like when it comes to security and stuff, like when I was launching the instance and stuff, still there are a lot of things that are similar. Like like security groups. Like when you launch like the instances and stuff, you still have to create security groups that you provide different ports, to different ports in order to be accessed, and then how you SSH into the instances, using SSH keys and stuff. Also creating key pairs. All of that stuff is still similar with the way it is in AWS. But once I get like a deeper knowledge with Azure 400, I should get back and explain more into the details. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So, at last, what do you say about me talking about AWS services with different people, and what do you think about my work? Do you think that it is beneficial for people? Uh, they they get they learn from these services. What do you say about my work, and how it will be helpful for me and to my audience?
Yeah, so yes, your work is very, very helpful to your audience because, every single time, like there is always different ways to deliver knowledge to the different audiences and stuff. And there are people who are willing to listen to professionals and how they do things and stuff, and they learn through there. So with what you're doing here, bringing on professionals, and at the same time, you know, them explaining what they do and providing real life scenarios of these resources and services, how they work in the cloud, helps a lot, especially for people who are starting their journey in the cloud.
Awesome. So thank you very much, Isaac, for giving your valuable time again and telling me about IAM and its importance in AWS. So I hope you'll continue doing this, learning more services and become an expert one day. And thank you again for coming.
Okay, okay, bye.
Yeah, can I put this video on? I wanted. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So last thing is, I should ask your permission? Can I put this audio and video clip on my YouTube channel, social media, internet, podcast, website, everywhere with your permission?
Yes, yes, you can.
Yeah, yeah. I'll meet you soon, and I'll wait for your time again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.